Hi, everybody. This is Michaela Beyer, and today I'm talking with Joe Almeida. Joe Almeida is the guitarist of the Dogs to More and Shooting Gallery, and now he is with Paul Mars Black in a band called Sonic Boom, and they've just released their new album, Everybody Rains on My Parade. We're going to talk about his entire life and career and his new album. Thank you so much for coming on, Joe.
You're very welcome. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Alrighty, let's dive in. Where were you born and raised?
My parents are Portuguese, and I was actually born in a Portuguese colony in a city of Luanda in a country called Angola, which is in Africa.
Oh.
So I was born there just in the early 60s, and basically my mum and dad met in Angola, and they're both Portuguese. My dad's from Porto, my mum's from Madeira, and they met in Angola, started dating, and then had 3 kids. The first one, they were living in Angola then, but the first one was actually born, my elder brother was born in Spain, because there was a bit of trouble going on over there in Angola at the time, and it wasn't safe for him to have a baby. There was a little bit of a shake-up over there at that time. And then, so they flew him over to be born in Spain, where my dad's family was living. So he was born in Spain, but then me and my sister were born. They went back to Angola, and that's where we were born. You know, my dad was a kind of raised in Portugal, though. He went to university, studied law, and then he actually lived with his grandma. And I think after university, he probably did everything he could to get away from his grandma, because she was quite serious, bossy boots, you know. Yeah. So he got an opportunity to become a lawyer in Angola, and he just went ahead and basically started a new life. You know, went over there. A couple of his friends moved over as well from university over there, and that's where he met my mum.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm Portuguese, really by passport.
Okay.
But born in Angola, which was a Portuguese colony.
Okay. Like, do you have clear memories of living there, or were you already, can you only remember living back in Europe?
I remember it vividly. You know, I mean, I lived there until I was 12. You see, in Angola, there was a civil war. So there was a little kind of a military coup in Portugal in 1974. And that changed everything for Angola and for Portugal and its colonies. So they decided to get rid of all the colonies and everything, and Angola kind of had to start on its own. And then they all started, 3 different parties started fighting with each other. One backed by the communists, one backed by the Cubans, one backed by the Americans, and all these people started coming in. And basically a civil war started, and I was still living there. So I was about 12 when I left. So I remember everything, you know. I had my family there. It was just wonderful, you know. I mean, you know, we were just very privileged because my dad was, you know, had a good job over there. And but you know, my mum would have to start picking me up from school when the rockets start flying. So it was quite, you know, dead bodies and bombs and trace guns, and it was a war, you know. So we had to move out, and my parents finally decided that, actually my little sister, she was a little bit of a dance prodigy, and she got accepted in the Royal Ballet while we were in Angola, which is kind of a hard thing to, you know, hard thing for someone in Angola to all of a sudden find someone from, you know, that was interested in her. So they flew her over to England around 73 to see if she passed, you know, if they passed the test. And they just accepted her at the White Lodge, which is quite a prestigious English ballet school. And she became a prima ballerina, but because she was the youngest one, my parents felt a bit weird about her being in a different country. So that gave them an incentive after the civil war started in Angola for us to kind of move to England. closer to where she was. So we moved into London in 1974 in the midst of glam rockness.
What was that like for you? I mean, was it a little bit jarring, or was it a change that you readily embraced?
I completely loved, I was always into music. I was into obviously the Beatles and those, Deep Purple, the Beatles. But the Beatles were my main thing. I followed John a lot, John Lennon. And, I used to cry when I used to get my hair cut. I was just like completely, I didn't know I wanted to be a musician, but there was something new happening, it was a change. Um, People were stuffy, the grown-ups are all stuffy. They all wore suits and stuff like that. But rock and roll kind of brought a sense of freedom at that time, and rebelliousness against the system and stuff like that, even in Angola. So when I moved to England, it was just like, wow, this is Abbey Road here, and the Beatles were here. They walked on this floor, and it was just a dream for me. And I was already into, the Sweet and Susie Quattro and all those bands, that were happening, Mud and Slade and all that kind of stuff that was happening. I was already listening to that in Angola. So when I got to England, it was like heaven for me. I loved it. My brother didn't like it so much. He was older than me by a year, but he missed his family, because we had to leave my mum's family over there in Angola for a bit. And so he hated it. My sister was already in England, but I completely embraced it. Music really was the only thing I was interested, even back then when I was 12, 11 years old. Yeah.
So what age were you when you first picked up a guitar and realized that that's what you wanted to play?
Well, in Angola, I was, playing tennis rackets, but so I knew there was something about the guitar that I liked, but I was going to end up playing it. So when I went to England, I kept listening to music, and I got into the Faces, and then I realized I wanted to play the guitar. And then my mom gave me like a horrible, like classical guitar, which was, you had, it's not what I wanted, but I got it, and she said, well, if you want to play this, you got to go get some lessons. And I took a couple of lessons, and then I kind of faked it. Said, oh, I'm going to go for the guitar lesson, but I wouldn't. I would go to my friend's house, and we'd play guitar without being cross-legged, because in classical guitar, they're very strict. It's just like the system. At that time, that whole point of being into rock and roll was, to break away from everything,
Yeah. But by the time you were kind of a teenager, were you already starting to play in bands? Like, did you, after you broke free of the classical guitar and started playing more rock, like, did you automatically start forming bands?
Yeah, I started bumping into friends that kind of liked music, and we started sharing passions of JJ Cale. I remember I was into JJ Cale. I was into Bob Dylan and songwriting. I was really embracing that, and obviously T-Rex and all those glam bands. That's before punk. And so I met a couple of people. One of them was a bass player. His brother actually played with his older brother played with John Deacon's band. John Deacon was the bass player from Queen, and he had a side band that was kind of more jazz driven. And I remember kind of going, "Oh, that's the guy from Queen," and he taught me a lot. He was an extremely good bass player. Already, he was just a kid like me, but he already was far more advanced than me. So he gave me some lessons, and he taught me some jazz stuff. At that time there was a lot of jazz, like it was progressive jazz. It was like people like Tony Williams and it was a lot of showy off kind of thing. A lot of really good drummers, really good guitar players. But I liked some of it. Stuff like band called Stuff. They had a lot of great musicians in it. and you know, learned a lot from him. And then another guy I met was the guitar player, who was more into Queen and into basic rock and roll. So he taught me a few licks. So and they gave me the confidence to kind of do a couple of gigs. And university, you know, like in London, you know, I played the London Chelsea Polytechnic or something like that, and it was nerve-wracking because I never played before. But it was, you know, they had a percussion player, had two guitar players, so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know, when you're in front of an audience for the first time, it's kind of nerve-wracking, and I kept overthinking it, but it's actually easier than I thought. And so I started doing gigs like that at polytechnics and stuff like that, you know, logging the gear around on the trains and stuff.
Nice. So was there a point at which you decided that you were going to be a professional musician, or did you go to university yourself for a while?
No, I didn't think I would end up a professional musician. I had this passion in me, and in terms of school, and I never got to university standards. Actually, I did my L levels and then tried to do my A levels. I knew I was going to fail my A levels in England, and so I decided to. I got a job before, saved some money, a few jobs I got, and bought myself the guitar, and then I'll travel because I knew the results were coming. So I made sure I was in Greece or something, you know, this with my friend when the results came, and the shocking news came to my parents that I did not pass the A levels. So which gave me a lot more enthusiasm to pursue the music thing, because there was nothing else I could do. I didn't know what I wanted to do, you know. There was a really good scene over in England at the time too, you know. So by that time, the glam, you know, basic rollers were kind of over, and things like that. And Mark Bolan passed away, and then there was a new breed of punk that came in that was, you know, it was like a breath of fresh air in a way. I mean, I loved my rock, you know, my Stones and my Faces and all that kind of stuff, you know, but punk rock came along, and it was kind of a rebelness that I wanted, you know, in music, you know, because I always like a hint of rebellious in it. I like a little bit of chaos in rock and roll. And punk brought that alive, because there was a lot of you know, boring bands in rock that were happening in you know, in England. So punk rock came along, and it kind of stirred everybody, made everybody want to pick up any instrument, you know, gave me confidence to kind of, wow, I can play more chords than you know, the guy from Eddie and the Hot Rods or whatever, you know. So it gave me the confidence to kind of start my own band, and I found a singer and a guitar player. The guitar player is still one of my best friends, a guy called John Paul Hound Dog, and he and I would share the passion that follows me to this day in music, you know, which is a lot of the Ronnie Keith and Ray Cooder, Taj Mahal, you know, the rockabilly stuff, you know, just, you know, all the Yardbird stuff, everything that kind of influenced me, and I used as a platform to kind of help me, you know, change my musical
Nice.
ambitions.
So were you playing in that band when you first heard the Dogs to More's first album?
Yeah, we were playing the same scene. By that time, Tyler would come and see us. Tyler's girlfriend Emma and her sister PJ, they used to come and see. We always used to kind of bump into each other, so they'd come and see our shows. I'd go and see their shows, and it was a little scene that was happening there. It was a small scene, you know, kind of around the place called Gossips, a little bit, and then there was the Ad Lib Club. You know, we'd play gigs there with Johnny Thunders. My band would play there, and then the Dogs would play some shows there. So we'd all go, and you know, and it was a scene that was happening. The Dogs were definitely more kind of, you know, chaotic, you know, when I first saw them, they were just pure chaos. You know, Tyler was just beginning to sing because they had a singer before that. That was quite a good singer, you know, Ned. And but Tyler was just, you know, just learning to sing and everything. And so it was all about the atmosphere and the chaos, you know, which I liked. You know, I didn't think musically they weren't any good when I first saw them, but I loved the way the presence that they had and the chaos. And I remember when I think after the singer left and the Kursworth came in, and Dave Kursworth, bless him. It was a Ronnie. It was a Keith Richards guy. You know, he just looked like Keith. I had to kind of double check and see. He looks just like Keith. It's like his double. You know, but he was another presence that was great. You know, he was just a character, and everything started happening. You know, our band had a little image, but we were more kind of a standard Stones kind of band. You know, we liked all that kind of stuff. There was nothing too glammy in my band. They were called Hearts of Gas, and so we played the same circuit. And then eventually Tyler asked me to. They lost Kursworth for some reason. I think he kept stealing people's drinks, and then a bum came back into the band, and they asked me if I wanted to do some gigs with them, and I said I'd help them. So I did some gigs. I think my first gig with them was at Gossips or something like that, which was a small club in Soho. That was great, and that went really good, you know. And then next thing I knew, they called me and they said, "Oh, you want to go to Lille in France?" And I said, "Okay, we'll go there." And it was the first outside of the UK gig I did, and I think Bam ended up throwing the hotel out the window, but we realized there was a police station underneath it. So yeah, you know, French police are quite tough, you know. So I think Bam and Tyler ended up in jail. I ended up kind of escorting our girlfriends and the bass player at the time, which wasn't Steve, he was a guy called Mark, lovely guy that I got into the band actually. And so escorting them back to England, and while Bam and Tyler were in in a French jail.
What a story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we were pretty chaotic. We've always been a chaotic band in the Dogs anyway. You know, when you got characters like Bam and Tyler, you know, you don't really need anyone else. You know, it's too hardcore, you know, clients that you've got there. You don't need too many anything else. There's so much going on already. So I was kind of lucky to be stuck in the middle of those two personalities, you know. So I kind of
like the calming influence in there.
Yeah, as I've always been very quiet, so I didn't like the you know, the attention. I never liked attention, you know, so I like to be part of the background. So it was a dream job for me, becoming the songwriter of a band, and then all of a sudden all I had to do was play guitar, and you know, there's some riffs in here, do you want them? You know, I'd put them into the song, and he was like, wow, you know, they accepted me just like that, you know. I mean, they didn't have the roots that I had, you know, but I loved the you know, the family, the new family I got into. You know, it became a family, you know, and it affected all of us. You know, our friendship changed us all, you know, because I got right into that momentum. When you create a band, you start finding out what works and what doesn't work, and you juggle things around. Tyler got his confidence. You know, I knew how to deal with Bam. You know, how to keep the rhythm going, how to keep everything sound like one. you know. One thing started happening after the other, because you start building an audience too, so the confidence comes in. You start traveling. We worked our asses off, you know, going up to Scotland, to everywhere in England. We just tour all the time, and so it was just magical time, really, for all of us. You know, we learned everything we know from those early, from you know, sleeping in the van, you know, sharing the same hotel or not, or sleeping on the streets, you know, because we couldn't have anywhere to go, whatever, you know.
Nice. So it created or it solidified a bond between the four of you.
Yeah, when you're that young, you don't really care about responsibilities, you know. You've got this driving force that you all go for. Sometimes, you know, later on when I re-met Bam, you know, after, you know, after a while, and I really got to know him, and it's like, wow, I didn't really know he was that character. All of them, you know, I mean, you kind of find out later, because when you're young, you don't really get involved about, you know, psychological things that happen. Why is a person that way? You know, it has a lot to do with their background, you know, the rebelness. Everything comes from somewhere. But when you're young, you don't think about it. You just ride this wave, and the wave for us was rock and roll, you know, trying to do something different, rebelling against something. There was a lot to rebel for us at that time. You know, we'd get, you know, in those days, because we'd be touring so much, and in England it was like, you know, there was only like 4 pubs in England that we could go to, that they'd allow us in, because, you know, we were like, you know, big hair, and you know, we didn't wash, we didn't brush our hair, we just looked like monsters, you know. We had eyeliner on and everything, so all the pubs would kick us out, you know. I'd do, we'd do a little short tour with the band, and then I'd go home and see my mom. I say, I'll buy you a drink, you know. So we'd go to the pub where she lived, and none of them would allow us in, you know. I was just me and my mom, you know, just because of the way I looked, you know. So we were pissed off that, you know, why do people take, you know, that so seriously? You know, we're just people, you know. So we rebelled against that. It's different now because everybody looks so, you know, you can go to see a classical concert, and you've got like a guy that looks like Johnny Rotten playing in the band, you know what I mean? But in those days you didn't, you know. Image was the step that you took to kind of say, look, you know, I don't want to play this game, you know. I'm different, you know. It's so it you know, guided us all.
Awesome. And you know,
as much ever.
you know, and one thing that I'm curious about, you mentioned before that you played with Johnny Thunders. What was that like?
Well, Johnny Thunders was like one of my biggest heroes, you know, because we were already listening to, and you know, New York Dolls never really made it big, you know. So he was like the underground god, you know. And when he came out from the shadows of punk rock, it became like our kind of main, you know, idol. You know, he was unpredictable guy, you know. He was a complete junkie by then, you know. But I was just completely aghast for him. I saw him lots of times, you know, playing with him, or going to see him live, you know. And you know, most of the gigs were crap, but it didn't matter to me. He was like a, you know, a force, you know. He had the voice, and he had the coolness. He had the guitar style that's so simple that it just like, you know, that's hard to find. And it's like the Chuck Berry of our, you know, at that time, you know. For me, he was like the Chuck Berry. Even if we, you know, maybe 2 gigs I saw of him, or 3 gigs were like great gigs, really super gigs, but the other 15 were crap. You know, sometimes he'd be just like with syringe, you know, and stuff like that. He could hardly walk, or he'd sold his guitar, or pawned it, or, you know. But, you know, he had his own demons to go through, like all of us, you know. But he was just a big influence, you know. The other big influences that I had was when I joined the Dogs. I was introduced to the Lords and New Church, and we went on tour with them, and that was Steve Bates, Brian, and Dave Trigana. Those are like the main people that kind of shaped me into the guitar style that I play too. You know, Brian, you know, he's one of my biggest influences, because he's a rhythm guitar player, you know, chops it down. And so when I joined the Dogs, I I could play a little bit of lead and rhythm, but because Tyler would be, he was like Steve Bators, you know, he'd be on the, messing around with the lightning rig, the lighting rig, or, just bouncing through the walls, or they disappear, somebody in backstage, or, and so I had to I didn't have parts anymore. I had to kind of, okay, there's no guitar. I had to keep the groove down. I had to relearn how to play guitar with on the spot, So, and I kind of, when we did those gigs with the Lords of New Church, that's kind of what I did. I watched Brian hold the rhythm, and I thought, wow, that's just great, because he made the rhythm sound like a lead guitar. He was such a great rhythm guitar. He still is one of my favorite guitar players and songwriters too. Thanks, Brian. He played the Telecaster as well, so that helped me, because when you're in a band like that, there's a lot of chaos. You're playing very close to the audience, and the band is kind of bumping into each other, kicking each other, and everything. And the Telecaster stay in tune, So I kind of decided to go for a Telecaster, because it was, it works with chaos,
Yeah. Along that line, how soon was it after you joined the band when you started to record in the Dynamite Jet Saloon?
Well, when I joined the band, we did some demos, early demos, and then we actually recorded the album before Dynamite. So, and that was with I brought a bass player into the band called Mark Hunziker, and he helped us to do that album. So we did the groundwork for the first album before Dynamite album. With a producer called Dan Priest. We actually recorded it. It got released eventually as the unofficial bootleg album. And it got released by China Records later. But anyway, we had a deal with a Japanese label, and they were going to put it out. And then the Japanese boss, Mr. Watanabe, passed away, so we didn't have the deal anymore. But anyway, I came in, we did some demos, and then we got this deal with Watanabe in Japan, and so we started recording for that. The producer was Dan Priest, and he got us rented a church, and we did the basic bed tracks for it, so the big room sound, for we got the bed tracks, basically the bass, drums, rhythm, most of it in that church. And then we went to Dan's place to do the dubs. So that was the first good recording experience I had. And but that album didn't get released until much later on, after Dynamite, so when we did Dynamite, we met Mark Donnelly, our engineer. It was the best thing that could happen to us, because when you're in a band like the Dogs, any rock and roll band that kind of is like in that kind of style, you've got to record everything. You need a good engineer there to just record it, because a lot of stuff happens spontaneously, and Dan was great. He had a great sense of humor, and he just had the ear. When he knew the vibe, so when he knew when two or the whole band were like had a little thing happening ahead before he'd press record immediately. And so we recorded a lot of stuff. So we went to we got the opportunity to work with him. We went to Black Barn Studios in Surrey. They it was isolated place. It was a great studio. A lot of great bands play there. Like I knew Jethro Tull played there, but a lot of great bands like Free and the Who and Bo Diddley. All my kind of idols recorded there. So it was like very exciting. We were away from home. There was a pub not too far from it. Living accommodations, and it was just like peace for us, chaotic peace, of course, because we're talking about the dogs, but it was just a dream, to go there and have a chance to kind of just be chaotic. And then we got recorded. I don't know. I mean, I listen to some of it now and it's like, wow, I'm glad that they pressed the record button on that one, because that's what happens. That kind of music, you need to be spontaneous. You need to do it really quick. You don't want to overthink it.
Okay. And do you feel like being able to hear yourself back and to be in a studio really made you a better guitar player?
Well, I think in a band you kind of find your spot. At the beginning, I was, when I started doing the demos with the dogs, I was kind of didn't want to tread on Tyler's licks because he already had a lot of little licks in there. So I kind of just kept it. I didn't know what he wanted, so I kind of augment, just made this guitar sound bigger, and I just kind of didn't want to. I want to work with the song too. So eventually, yeah. When you go into the studio, when you record something like Dynamite, you've got guitar parts that you all of a sudden got to remember, the all the accidents that they recorded, and you start, wow, that's a nice line, I'm going to do that every time, because when you start playing the songs without being recorded, you just do them, it's got a great feel and everything, but when you can hear it back, you gotta, okay, I'm gonna do that part. You've got the whole thing kind of planned out already, so it does help you as a guitar player. It shapes you, so you start picking up those pieces and then it becomes your style.
It sounds like it was the kind of band where it was very spontaneous in a lot of ways, but it required a lot of concentration from you to be able to get the pieces together.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it concentration. I mean, it's what I love doing, so, and, I think everybody else in the band really loved that kind of bluesy style that I had with me. So I'm not really punk rocky, although I like the element of punkness and that aggressiveness, but I already had Bam and Tyler there, to do that. So Steve came in then when we did just before we started working on Dynamite, and he was like a whole different thing. So he gave me a little a compadre to be with, because there was just two lunatics at the front, and then me and Steve were just like, oh, it was a great friendship that started there. We went through a lot of bass players before Steve came, but when he did come along, he was kind of heaven, really. He just glued made everything just perfect.
So when he came in, it kind of sounds like you knew that the band was solidified, and it became truly the lineup that you knew was going to last for the long.
Yes, because Steve had a great sense of humor too, and that him and Tyler got along really well, and that's important for us too. I mean, I just used to spend all my time laughing really in that band. It's quite funny, all the three characters in that band. They're really funny. I'm not like a comedian myself, but I just enjoy comedy, So it was like being in an Ealing comedy, really. Ealing is like an old style British type of comedy,
Nice. So do you have any favorite songs from Dynamite Jet Saloon, or any that you're particularly proud of?
Well, Dynamite has got a lot of the, definitely working with Dan, he gave me the opportunity to do more the slide parts and stuff like that, and do kind of what I wanted, because the other producer was a bit more kind of a kind of what he'd like to use this guitar tone and stuff like that, and Durnley wasn't like that at all. So I liked I liked a lot of songs on that. What songs did they? Everything I Want, for example. You know, that's kind of a blues-based song, really. I like that. I liked Heartbreak. That's one of the spontaneous songs. We didn't even know he was going to end up on the album, but it's like, okay, Joe, what have you got? And then I just tried to play it. We didn't even know he was going to end up on the album. We thought he was just like, no way it's going to, you know, it was just a jam, you know. What else? Last Bandit. That's another great song. You know, it's stuff like that that we'd go, wow, that's great. And Bam would accentuate things and make everything a little bit more exciting and, you know, give it more color. We'd all start adding color to a little riff, you know, and it would become our own, you know. And it certainly injected a lot of blues into it, which was, it's always has been my passion, you know, really in deep down, really.
So you toured with Mother Love Bone shortly before their singer Andy Wood passed away. Do you have any memories of that or of the band?
Yes. Oh, we were all quite surprised with them because we came from a very kind of, you know, punky kind of, you know, chaotic, you know, hanging out with the Steve Baders and all those kind of people, you know. He was like, you know, and then we'd see a band that was like, you know, they were like prog rock in a way, you know. They would kind of do a lot of solos and stuff like that. It's like, wow, you know, they're so young, they got so much energy, but they just like jam, like, you know. That's why punk rock came along. So I couldn't understand why they couldn't use that energy, but you know, they were very talented, but I couldn't understand why they were so you know, the chaos didn't come out of them. You know, we used our chaos, you know, to make the gig as part of the performance, you know. But they were very kind of more arty, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the singer was quite arty, really, you know, the way he dressed and everything. And he was kind of like, you know, the first American that we kind of met, really. It was kind of a weird guy. He was, you know, he'd come up to us and say some kind of really odd stuff. And we kind of couldn't. And then he'd have these tights on, like, you know, like, what's Van Halen's singer called?
David Roth.
David Lee Roth, you know. They go, oh, man in tights, you know. But, you know, they were just so much into our own thing. And then coming, like, you know, coming to America. And they did a whole tour with us. And so they supported us through the whole tour. And I don't think they liked us very much because we were quite rude, you know. They didn't like our road crew. And road crew was like, you know, because we were doing, you know, they played before us. And the road crew would say, can they'd ask us to, you know, can you move the drums back a bit so we have more space? And our road crew didn't, bollocks, you know. So they did not like us. I think the crew were like having a great time in a foreign land, and they didn't want to do stuff like that. You know, we played tiny places in that American tour. You know, it was great seeing America like that. It was really wonderful. You know, they did have quite a big fan base in when we got to Seattle.
Yes. Yeah.
They were down there. Yeah. Shame what happened to him. He was so young, you know, and I didn't really, you know, when you're young, you know, we just had these wave riding. We didn't think, you know, about his family or anything, but, you know, I feel terrible, you know, that something like that happened to him.
Yeah, it's a big loss. I really love Mother Love Bone, and it sucks that they didn't get to go further and that he didn't get to live a long life. But I'm grateful to you for sharing your memories of it.
Yes, I remember he was definitely a frontman. He had something special outside of that band, you know. But definitely the rest of the band were definitely more pensive, you know, more thoughtful about their approach, you know.
And I have to ask about one of your concerts on that tour. One person who was interviewed backstage at a show you did with Mother Love Bone was Axl Rose. Do you remember when he attended that show?
Yeah, I mean, I never met Axl. I mean, not then, but I think he was dancing next to one of my guitars, and our guitar crew again kicked him out. They didn't know. I mean, they were the biggest fans of Guns N' Roses, but my guitar tech kicked him out. I think he punched him or something. So I don't know what Axl said after that, but I mean, I didn't really know. I know that he got kicked out, and then that's after the gig. It's like, oh, he just got punched. And say, whoa, who punched him? I did. It was you know, my guitar tech. So you know, that's rock and roll, baby.
Okay. So eventually you went back in the studio to record Errol Flynn. Were there any significant changes that you wanted to make in the band's sound for that record?
No, we just writing something, and I think we finished the American tour, and they put us in a remote place in the north of England. So we were all very, you know, American. It was beautiful and everything. It was like, you know, different, you know, sunny, and there was people, the chaos and everything. And then they put us in a remote village in England, which is like very quiet, and you know, they kind of tried to lock us into a studio so we could do the album, but they had a pub in the studio, which was very thoughtful. So we just Mark Donnelly came into the picture again, an engineer. They produced it, and he did an amazing job. You know, I mean, that guy was a genius. He is a genius. I don't know where he is. Mark, thank you, mate.
Here's to Mark.
Yes. Mark Donnelly kind of, you know, he came again, and he just, it made it seem effortless to us. We didn't even think if the songs were any good again, and then before you know it, you're hearing it back. I do remember the head of the label came when we were, was it Errol? What was the second album we did? Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Errol. Yeah, they did the label guy, Derek Green, head of the China Records. He said that, you know, he didn't like it, and he said to Mark Donnelly, let's try and do some kind of weird stuff with it, like what we did with the Small Face, because he worked with the Small Faces a long time ago. So they had this kind of effect, and that it would go on the drums and everything, you know, that kind of psychedelic phase that the Small Faces went through it. So they tried to put that. They did that on stuff like Satellite Kid. Was that on that album? I think it was. Anyway, so Donnelly under orders by Derek, a few songs had that kind of psychedelic-y kind of sound effect. Anyway, I still like the album though. I like. There's a lot of songs on that Drunk Like Me. I personally like, because you know, I've always liked the I've always liked spaghetti western stuff, you know. The Shadows were an English band, and they had a lot of that kind of my first introduction to that whole American twang music, you know. And so, and also, you know, watching spaghetti westerns, you know. So I always found my opportunity in that song to put that lick in there, and songs like the Satellite Kid too. You know, simple. I was trying out different tunings and everything. So you know, I was just expanding as a guitar player, you know, trying to find something, you know. Songs like Princess Valium to me reminds me a little bit of I know it sounds weird to you, but Pink Floydy to me, you know, the way the chord structure, and where I found my place in it at the end. You know, if they let me solo at the end, I'd have ended up kind of like a David Gilmour bloody solo or something like that. But you know, there were a lot of different songs on that album, I think, you know.
Nice. And I was going to ask you about the music videos briefly too. Did you like filming the music videos?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think too much about at that time, you know. Sometimes the movie directors on that on the Satellite Kid video, I remember the director telling me to move a bit more. I was like, what the fuck? You know, he's telling me what to do. I mean, the guy at the studio never tells me what to do. And I thought that was strange, you know. And then all the guys like Stephen, Bam, and Tyler kind of saying, don't tell, you know, they would like just they could tell I was pissed off, him saying that to me. But we'd spend all day kind of doing the Satellite Kid background, you know. Tyler kind of did the basic writing on the background, and we kind of painted it all and everything, and we had a great time doing it. And then the director was a bit kind of you know, so I got into a bit of a strop with him. Doing videos is kind of boring, you know. It's you're just waiting all day, and then you mime. You know, I'm not very good at miming. None of us were good at miming, you know. Videos for us were very boring, always were.
Okay, well, I've actually heard a lot of people say that. So
yeah, I mean, the actual thing, you know, the film industry, it's just full of people, you know, and it's and then there's no real room for chaos. And I mean, we are chaos kind of in that kind of music that we play. It's all based on spontaneity, so we don't like to plan things. You know, as soon as you rehearse something, you know, it's tough for us. You know, we're not very organized as a band. You know, so we don't like to be told rules. You know, but thankfully, you know, some of the videos turned out okay. Some of them, not all of them. You know.
okay. Well, moving on, how were you approached to join Shooting Gallery?
Well, it was later, you know, because we did Errol, after Errol, we did Graveyard of Empty Bottles, and it was
And
like
also straight.
kind of album. We were just basically getting into trouble because we finished touring, and Tyler went up to our manager at the time and said, we got to do something, you know, we're all splitting up with our girlfriends and wives and everything, and we were just like getting together in one hotel room because we just missed each other so much, and it's like it was like a unit, you know. So to get out of trouble, because we're getting into a lot of trouble, Tyler's hospitals and you know, all the other chaos that goes on, the manager just said, okay, go into the studio. And we went into the studio again with Durnley, and we recorded the acoustic album. It was kind of a 10-inch album, you know. We actually recorded a lot more songs, and a lot of these songs ended up on B-sides later on. But so I forgot. I think I lost my train of thought. What was the question again? That you asked me.
How yeah, like how were you approached to join Shooting Gallery?
Yeah, because we did do another album too after that one. So Graveyard of Empty Bottles, and then we kind of
Straight.
we did Straight. Yeah, it was Straight, which was a whole different thing because we were having so much chaos with management, and you know, we still didn't have, you know, we were signing on the dole, you know, we still didn't have money coming in, you know, and we still had to beg our manager for money every weekend. And the Tyler would get you know, a little bit, but we had to beg for it, you know. We had to go down the pub where he was all the bloody time, and then asking for a, you know, we had to sign on in England. We had to go to you know, get money from the government, you know, because we couldn't live, you know, even though we were on Top of the Pops, you know. It was just Top of the Pops, like an English you know, TV show. So we were kind of desperately trying to, you know, after Top of the Pops, the manager gave us a contract that was much bigger than the original one. It was kind of like, you know, noticeably bigger. And, you know, we're not stupid, you know, we may drink a lot and stuff like that, but we knew that there was something going on. So we decided to, and then when we went to, when we started doing the Straight album, so that was probably around 1990, I think we decided to look for management there. So we went to America looking for management, you know, and we found some, and so we tried that out. You know, it was just a way to get out of the management, really. And also we loved America too, because, you know, we all fell in love to American. Most of us got married. You know, we all kind of, you know, trying to live the dream. Me and Steve were really into American Indians and stuff like that. And you know, I loved you know, being in Dallas and Austin, and looking at record stores, you know, looking at country music and all those you know, history of you know, my blues stuff, you know, Mississippi and all that kind of lead belly stuff, you know, just all, it was like a dream. I mean, to me, being there in a record store in the heat, you know, we didn't have any money, but it was just great for us to, and we sucked it all in. I sucked all that country music and the blues even more than I did before. Steve loved all the stuff too, you know, all the you know, conchos and the you know, the clothing and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So we loved America, so we gave it a shot with a new producer. We eventually found a Rick Browdy. He just seemed to gel with us in terms of not because of what he did in the past, but more because of he was a fan of the band, you know, and he gave us an opportunity to even let us shine even more. So he gave us space in the studio, you know, and it sounded more. We did the album, and he was well produced, and he was kind of, we had a chance to work with the, you know, background singers, you know, getting that gospel feel. Ian McLagan from the Faces and Small Faces. It was just, you know, cello, violin, you know, we thought maybe, you know, the song calls for it, you know. We liked all that stuff that the Idols did, you know, like Alice Cooper when he you know, put orchestras and stuff in stuff. So we loved all that kind of stuff, you know, horn sections or whatever. So it gave us another opportunity to kind of mess around with that kind of thing, you know, take it to a different, more produced, not so loose. It wasn't so loose as the other albums, but we already kind of knew each other very well. It was like a family. You kind of, you know, you know instinctively what someone else in the band's going to do by then. So we were a complete unit. It's just a matter of what approach to spice it up at the end, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So straight, and then after straight, that's when the kind of chaos started happening. You know, we all were married, and Tyler kind of didn't want to do anything. He kind of was trying to do something solo, I think, and that gave us a lot of chaos. You know, we for the first time, after living together for so long, we, you know, we didn't know what was going on, so we started meeting people. You know, I hung out with Gilby Clark. Gilby was at that time, he had a band called Kill for Thrills, and the Blackouts. Yeah, so he asked me to do some gigs with him, and I was working with him. He wanted, I helped him out with some demos. He helped me out with some stuff too. I also did some demos. Joe's Juke Joint, and we found a little band thing. He had a band called the Blackouts, but I liked the drummer a lot, and Will Efforts, a great player too, which became the backbone of that first album he did when he got signed to Virgin. What was it called? Pawn Shop Guitars.
Yeah, Pawn Shop Guitars.
Yeah, and so, you know, I started doing stuff like that. I started meeting other people, because we never really did that too much before, you know. I mean, even with the Choir Boys, when we used to bump into each other, they were kind of a, you know, the Beatles understands, we don't, you know, we didn't really want to, you know, we didn't really hang out with them too much. Maybe, you know, maybe Tyler slept with one of his girlfriends or something, you know, but that was, you know, we were friends, but, you know, we knew what we were, you know, what we wanted. And the Choir Boys, you know, we thought everyone else was crap, you know, you know, because you're young and you think like that, you know. So and in America, he opened my eyes up a little bit more, and I had to, jam around with Gilby. Gilby was a good friend too, because the dogs were kind of pretty much on a on a breakup kind of road, because Tyler didn't want to have anything, to do. He wanted to try and pursue something, and he had his marriage, and then his marriage got into chaos, and our marriages too, we ended up getting into chaos too, because we weren't working, so that brings a lot of uncertainty in a family, so all our marriages pretty much disintegrated, and in the end, we all started talking about, going back on the road and stuff, and doing it again, and so that's Uncharted Heights kind of thing. So before the Uncharted Heights, we did some demos in Indigo Studios, which was here in LA, and Tyler was hitting, he wasn't completely straight on that one.
Yeah.
But he was drinking more and more, and he wasn't happy, with his life. And so, but we were kind of trying to come back. Eventually, Tyler eventually came over, and we had a meeting, and we said, okay, let's do it. And we're going to go to England, and we're going to start again. Because there was a scene happening in England around that straight time. There was, of course, by then, the whole Nirvana thing happened and kind of screwed us up completely. And there was a lot of different kind of, it was stuff for a band like us to kind of, for a rock band at that time. There was a lot of, in England, there was a lot of that, Oasis kind of swayed, and those great bands, but they didn't really like the rock and roll thing. They had a chance. The Manchester scene really opened up a lot of new fan base. So we started talking about getting the band together, and me and Tyler, because Steve and Bam were in England. I think Bam was in England doing the Wild Hearts with Ginger at that time, and but we started talking, and we all started getting, okay, let's follow this plan. And we talking to the China Records guy in China. I said, well, let's not listen to him. Let's just work our fan base again from the ground up. So maybe go to Brighton, do small gigs, and just like we used to. And I think Tyler agreed to me at first, and that's what. But it was desperate times too, because we didn't have an income, so he eventually decided, no, I'm just going to do it. Are you in or not? So he came over, and we had a meeting. I said, I don't want to rush into this. I want to do it right if we're going to do it again, So I know I'm sounding like a real brainy kind of guy, but that's the way kind of I was trying to put a lot more thought into it. I didn't want to just end up being like Johnny Thunders, because Johnny kind of let the drugs and everything take in, and became kind of like doing album, I don't know. I didn't want to end up like that. I wanted us to kind of have a kind of a focus or something. So I backed out, are you in or not? And then I said, no, I'm going to stick around here. At that time, I had the Gilby thing happening, and I didn't know what. He had just joined Guns N' Roses, like 91, I think, or maybe 92. Something like that. And I was like, I was helping him out doing a solo album, and which had a lot of the same band that we used in the Blackouts. Basically, it was the Blackouts. We kind of did a lot of touring before he got in Guns N' Roses. So we already knew that album when he got the deal for the pawn shop. He was in Guns N' Roses, but we already had toured a little bit before, played a lot of gigs and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I had something kind of exciting happening a little bit. And around that time, my friend Rick Browdy, who did the Straight album, asked me that the Shooting Gallery was looking for a guitar player. And I thought, I don't know, I wasn't too sure about it, but I went to meet him. And then Dave Trugana was in the band. You see, Dave Trugana is an important person here. I've loved Dave Trugana ever since, you know,
Lords of the New Church.
Laws a New Church, you know, I mean, he's such a great person, you know, I mean, he came and he played on the unofficial bootleg album. He kind of picked him up, and he said, he helped us put some bass tracks on a few of the tracks there, and he kind of listened to it in the car on the way to the gig, and on the way to the recording session, and he played some amazing bass. He's like one of the best bass players ever, full stop. And a great harmony singer. He's just a beautiful person, you know. He's only like 4'1" or something. So that excited me a lot. And obviously, you know, Andy McCoy, you know, we all love the Hanoi and everything, you know, Steve, and but we're always joking about how they broke up, and say, you know, to Tidy, don't want to do what Andy did, you know, fucking break up the band, you know. In a way, we kind of, you know, because Andy at that time got, you know, I don't know the insides and outs, but we always used to kind of warn Tyler, like, you don't end up like Andy, you know. And so shooting gallery, I kind of the prospect of working with Andy was great, but very uncertain, because I already knew, you know, that he was a user and everything, you know, and I never really been around. I mean, we've been around the dogs with everything, you know, but a user, you know, it changes everything for me. It's too dangerous for me. So I was always very aware of him, you know. After meeting Johnny Thunders too, you know, I respected Thunders, but I had to keep him at a distance, you know. I never really kind of you know, just bow to him, you know. Sometimes he said, you know, oh, you doing that joint, you never share with me. And I said, just the way it is, you know. I mean, I didn't bow to him. I respected him, but I didn't want to anyway.
I know what you mean. It's very easy to let Andy
yeah, it's very easy to let people like that, you know. Anyway, the Andy, so I did meet up with Andy and to see if it worked, and he was kind of I did like him. I liked what he talked about with the two guitar thing, and I learned a lot from him, you know. I mean, he was such an amazing guitar player. He's like one of the best, you know, and he's a great songwriter. And at that time, I mean, God, he was just a full engine. He's an engine. He gets on stage and it's just energy, you know, and it's got everything you want. The Danger, it's got the Chuck Berry thing in it. It's got all the flashy stuff too, but not the metal thing, you know. It's just, you know, and the energy is amazing. I mean, there's no doubt about his talent, you know. And I mean, and also he's got a character that you know, a lot of musicians that play that game, you know, it's a dangerous character to play with, because you have to live with it for the rest of your life, you know. But I after meeting him, I saw a friend, you know. I did see parts of him that were like real, you know, a shy guy, and intelligent, you know. I did see all those things, and that's why I decided to join the band, because I thought, oh, I can deal with it, you know. But it became a little bit too much later on, because I saw the chaos that he caused, you know. I mean, I had to find a way to kind of how to you know, deal with it, you know. I did share a room with him. It's all right dealing with him away from home, but when you're home, it's different, you know. You don't want to bring that kind of chaos home, you know. But I love playing with him. I really did. I mean, he's just one of the best. And he gave me room to do my guitar playing, because, you know, I have a very bluesy thing going on, and he let me do that underneath his playing. So I didn't play on the album or anything like that. They just asked me to do the tour. We did a tour with Kiss, and we started off at the Troubadour. We did 2 shows at the Troubadour, and then we made our way to New York, you know. And I think Andy insulted just about everyone in the record business all the way through to New York. But it was you know, amazing, you know, from the word go, you know. It was just a ball of fire, you know. Andy was just creative force that, you know, uncomparable really, that I've played with in a band, you know. A lot of drama. Billy also was not, Billy the singer was, you know, he had a bit of a problem too with some drugs and everything. So it was two of them, you know. So to me, it got a little bit, you know, that kind of heroin thing is a little bit too much, you know. But I had some, I mean, you know, touring with Kiss too. It was great. I mean, the first night at the Troubadour, I met, I was introduced to Steve Jones and
Oh,
Brian Johnson, Lenny Kravitz. You know, it was just a whole, you know, everybody wanted to see Andy, you know what I mean? And every gig they booed us, you know, because he was like Kiss fanatics, you know. They were like, you know, we played small, so it was like a, you know, unmasked kind of tour, you know. So they had, you know, they didn't have their makeup on, but you know, they're small venues like the Troubadour is small, it's tiny, you know, but they had like lines of people going like 20 times around the bloody venue, you know. Every town was like that, you know, so everybody dressed like Kiss, you know, all the way around. It was just a whole different thing, you know.
yeah, it was a new experience for you because the audiences were so much larger and
Yeah. I mean, the Dogs never played any kind of big stadiums or anything. You know, we were, our label didn't. You know, they forwarded us a gig with Uriah Heep, supporting Uriah Heep, but it was like that's the biggest band probably that we played with. You know, I don't know, of Uriah Heep. You know, we were bigger than them by then. But so when, you know, that kind of American, that was small clubs though, but you could see, you know, where it would lead to. America's a whole different territory, you know, when it comes to you know, stadium gigs. That's a whole different, you know. The Dogs never really gone. We did a few gigs in around the 90s, a couple of gigs in you know, we supported the Dio and it was like festival, you know, but nobody liked us because we, you know, we didn't play metal, you know. There we stopped playing like, you know, the iconic Dog songs, you know, and everybody booed us because we didn't have distortion on the guitars, you know. So they like that metal thing. They like the head banging and they like the, you know, all that metal thing, you know. So different from Europe, I think. It always has been, I think, for the kind of music that we do, the rock and roll. Don't remember. I remember meeting a lot of people, you know. Like I said, you know, Lenny Kravitz when we were in New York, and yeah, Steve Bater's guitar player from the old days. We met him in New York too, had a few drinks. He was still drinking then. God, man, he was punk rock. You know, I met a lot of people on that tour, you know. This thing happened within a year, really. I mean, you know, it was over after a year because, you know, there had two people using in that band, you know. One night when we were on tour in Arizona, I was on, coming back from so we did the Kiss all the way to New York, and then on the way back we did it by ourselves, headline. And on the way back, I was in Arizona, and I was somewhere anyway. We're coming back, and we were late coming back. Me and Dave Trugana, because Dave Trugana wanted to, you know, we ended up staying at someone's place before coming back to the house. So we rushed back, and then the bus was just about to leave, and you know, and I say, wait, you know, we just pick up our bags and come back in, and me and Dave Trugana rushed in, picked up our bags, and then the tour bus starts leaving, right? It's leaving, and Dave is only like little guy, right? He starts fuming, and he gets so the bus. Someone told the bus driver to go, right, as soon as they saw it coming out the hotel with the bags.
Yeah.
Dave got pissed. Gets into the other the van with the George Nicks and the crew that and followed the fucking bastards. So we get there, we just keep following them, and then he just stops the bus, pulls in front of the bus, stops. Dave just walks. He's angry. You don't want to see Dave angry, right? So he walks into the bus, walks straight past everyone, goes, sees the road manager and just headbutts him. But road manager was a tall guy. He just headbutts him. He goes right on the floor. Don't you ever fucking do that to me. You know, he just goes off. You don't want to see Dave fuming. He's the sweetest guy ever. But when you know, I've seen him way back in the days when you see him, you know, something happens and you don't want to get on the bad side of Dave Tragana.
What it was like in shooting gallery.
Yeah, well, you know, me and Dave used to have a great time, and you know, like I said, we had a great drummer too, Paul Garisto, plays psychedelic fuzz. He was in the band with Iggy Pop with Andy McCoy, and he was a great drummer. He's a different kind of drummer than I was used to, because he's very, you know, everything when he does stuff at the rehearsals, it's like what he does at the gig. You know, with people like Bam and those kind of drummers, it's all like, you know, okay, yeah, I know what it is, but he kind of you know, the mood comes into the gig, you know, the audience and the feel, you know. But with Garisto, consistently on, you know, he does the feel and you think he's not going to do it, but you do it again the same at rehearsal than you do at the gig, you know. Amazing drummer, love him. I saw him not long ago when he did he left the psychedelic first a couple of years ago, but amazing musician.
I've actually seen some of the live footage with him and Iggy Pop when Andy was in the band, and when Alvin Gibbs was in the band, and he's wonderful there.
Oh, what a great band they had, you know. Alvin, unbelievable. What a band, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, their live footage is great. I love it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, what did you do between the end of shooting gallery and rejoining the Dogs to More?
Well, I came back and I did a lot of stuff in terms of country music. I played. I got into this band. I was kind of a little bit sick of rock and roll at the time, so I started doing something. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I met my wife, and I just wanted to do something a little bit different, you know. And I kind of started selling secondhand vintage clothing, because I didn't want to have anything to do. It became cliche, you know, doing what we're doing. You know, being a rebel, it's all right, but you can't keep breaking your drum kit, you know, because it becomes norm, you know. So I got bored with the predictability in rock and roll, you know. So I tried to get away from it, and I've always been into country music too. So I started really Rick Browdy, my old producer from that did the Straight album. He, you know, he's quite he knows his music, you know. So he introduced me to a lot of the great old country music, George Jones world, and all that kind of American country music, you know, songwriting and all that kind of stuff, you know. Just big influence on me. So I was trying to do something a little bit more, you know, not, you know, like in rock and roll. So you go on stage with an attitude, and you use that attitude to feed you, to entertain. And when you do the country music thing in America, it's so different, because you don't use that. You can't go there and spit on a grandma or a 5-year-old kid that's just liking the gig. You know, can't use that. You've got to just, you know, find a balance. So it took me a while to kind of you know, learn to detach yourself from attitude to playing, you know. Because I always like the element of danger, you know, in music. That always has been with me, and that's ideal when I found the Dogs, you know. But I always like that. I don't, you know, that's why I like the Stones. That's why I like the Small Faces. They always had somebody there that was, you know, fighting. You know, there was a rebelliousness about it. You know, there always has to be a little bit of that. You know, and in country music there is that too. It's just a different way of projecting it. You know, it's lyrical. It's all, you know.
Were you ever a fan of Graham Parsons?
Yeah, yeah, I think we all, you know, that's one great thing that I share with the choir boys is from back in the day, you know, Graham Parsons was a big part of, you know, just like the Stones, you know, and joining country music, you know, helping country music evolve. You know, I wasn't really into the Eagles and that clean sound. I was more into that kind of organized, a bit chaotic too, because they were quite unpredictable band. You know, I love all the songwriting and everything about them, really. You know.
Yeah, I've
So
always been
another big
sorry.
part of you know, the band, bands like the band and Graham Parsons, you know, they were very instrumental in me getting into that, doing what I did, tried to do with the country music. So I kind of joined a band called Hawkeye, and we did a lot of gigs and small clubs, and it was kind of, I'd get a round of applause. You know, we play. Um, Gigs here in LA, small club, but they were dedicated fans of music, you know, and they do a solo and people clap. And I was like, what? That never happened to me before, you know. So you get a, you know, drummer does a, you know, a drum thing, and he claps, the guitar player does one. It's like, wow, you know, they really appreciate music, you know. So he was kind of I got into it, and through that I met a guy called Chris Richards, and he asked me to go on tour. Chris Richards. So he liked my playing style, and somehow he liked, because he's a real musician, you know, like in terms of songwriter. He's old school, like Chris Christopherson kind of songwriter, you know. Nobody's really heard much of him, but he's a really talented songwriter. So, but he actually liked me, you know, and I was like, oh, you know. So he asked me to go on tour to support an album that he had brought out. And he had a lot of great people, you know, session people here that played on the album. And one of them was the pedal steel player that played with George Jones. And with Paul McCartney, you know, it's like an iconic. What was his name? I'll remember his name in a bit. It's like a pedal steel player, and I'm not really a pedal steel player, but he wanted me to go tour with him and play pedal steel as well as different stuff. You know, I was like, oh, I can't do that. And especially when I'm playing this guy's parts, you know, he's like an iconic player. You know.
Yeah.
But he convinced me to do it, and I went on tour and I played pedal steel, and we did the whole tour of LA to New York, and then we went back to Nashville, and we played the Grand Ole Opry, and that was an amazing thing for me, because, you know, I'm playing to grandparents and to kids and to, you know, and I'm playing like, you know, pedal steel, and I had a mandolin with me, and then an electric guitar. So it was a whole different thing, you know, really different. First of all, it was like being a drummer, because with the pedal steel, you have to take it all out the case. It's like setting up a drum kit, you know.
Yeah.
And then you got, you know, a lot more than 6 strings. So you gotta, you know, every once in a while you gotta change all these bloody strings. Anyway, whole different ball game, and I learned a lot from that thing. It gave me a whole new dynamic to my music, you know. Just one single note, you can make it sound, you know, to be part of, simplify things a little bit, you know. Listen to people, stuff like the band, for me, you know, just simplicity of things, really. So doing that whole thing after shooting gallery and all that kind of chaos, I, you know, I didn't want to just be you know, a rock star or anything like that. I wanted to be a musician. I realized that. So, you know, and that's when I bumped into Paul Black. And actually I had a band with called Borracho just before this whole thing happened. That was kind of a very country based, because you know, like the George Jones thing, and a lot of blues and stuff. And I did get into a really good band with Dave Roach, chaotic, amazing singer and songwriter, lyricist, Ted Hatt, who's a Grammy Award winning producer, you know, uh, uh, and Bam came to join me on drums on that too. Really good, amazing band, but it was just like we were just um, still rockers, you know, and we you know, we had these big dreams, and didn't happen because, you know, we didn't get our shit together. Yeah, we still were rock stars, you know. So that happened just before this whole thing I was talking about, you know. But that was a great band called Baracha, a lot of energy, but more of that kind of country, but country cow punk and all that kind of stuff that kind of became kind of trendy a little bit afterwards. But we were doing it at that time, you know, before it became big, you know.
Nice. And what did you think of Paul when you first started playing with them? Did it feel like a really great natural partnership?
Yes, I liked his um, songwriting. I mean, he's a complete the easiest person to write with. You know, he's a real songwriter. You know, and he can kind of make things up on the spot and work with you, and take it to any way he wants. You give him a riff, and he'll take it to somewhere where you don't expect it to go, lyrically and sonically. You know, he's got that melody that I like. I like songs to have a, a, a voice that kind of has a passion in it, and and uh, and a sentiment, you know. And he puts the expression into the lyric. So I liked the way he walked around with my stuff. We got on really well. I started doing a session for him first, and I brought a guy from Baracho in it, one of the guitar players, Terry LaCourse, great guitar player, and I did some demos with him. And and then he called me back later on. He wanted to start a band with me, and then we started writing together. We kind of started off from scratch. We had to strip everything off because it's that phase I was going through. I didn't want to be a rock star anymore. I want to just do music. You know, we're going to do it. So I stripped everything off, and we started doing Lead Belly songs. We started doing kind of songs that were stripped down. We'd go out busking sometimes. We'd go in the middle and nobody knew who we were or anything, you know. But we just, you know, we tried to go out there and be like, you know, in your face with you know, people that were just like ignoring you and throwing coins and stuff, you know.
So it was sort of like a long unplugged session.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's hard to do that because we learned, oh, it's raining, or, you know, people can't hear my guitar, and so we kind of busking, you know. And it was learned to write with each other from doing all those old songs, and then we started writing a lot of stuff that, you know, we wrote a lot of stuff together, you know. But the input for all that was our roots, you know. So we used Lead Belly as the main source, and Lead Belly to me is like probably one of the greatest American, well, greatest musicians of all time, because as a songwriter, as a player, and you know, delivery. To me, he's like everything. He's like a song and dance man. You know, you can put him there, and he can do anything. You know, if if he forgets his guitar, you know, he'll do foot tapping, or he'll hum if he hasn't got the lyrics. So whatever he has on his hand, he does it. Another person that I've seen do that is Taj Mahal. He can entertain anyone. He's just got that talent, all, you know, all in one. I call these people song and dance men. You know, they're like Bob Dylan. They can just do it. You know, they're the real dog's bollocks.
Nice. Now, right around this time, you also became a father. What was that like?
Well, it changed me. You know, I mean, I was already heading towards kind of, you know, getting away from music and everything, but you know, having my daughter kind of you know, put everything into perspective, you know, made me not want to be like my idols that just ignore their parents, and my friends that have kids, and they, you know, I can see them cry, you know, they tough people, you know, and I've seen them cry, you know, because they weren't there for their kids, and there's nothing you can do when it's too late, you know, you can't walk back. So I was lucky though, because by the time I had my daughter, I was mature, you know, because when you have a kid, when you're that young, if I had a kid when I was in the dogs or in in that kind of chaos, you don't, you're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about, you know, that dream, that wave that you're riding, you know. And a lot of my friends, you know, weren't so lucky with their kids. You know, they rode the wave because you do it because that's what you want to do. That's your passion, you know. And maturity brings you, controls things. And so I was lucky that I got my daughter at that time, and you know, everything else has been about her. Really, that's my whole thing, and it has been ever since. You know, I mean, there's nothing more important to me than my family. You know, my daughter is beginning to get into rock and roll. I mean, she loves all that kind of stuff. She's getting to Johnny Thunders now, and she's getting, I mean, she's really, I mean, she's going to be 17 this year, but she loves rock and roll. I mean, it's like, you know, and she'll listen to a song with the Faces, and she, you know, when I first played it, the Faces go, "What's that?" You know, and so she hears the same thing I heard, you know, because when I was a kid, I'd hear, you know, you just need to hear a part of something in a song, and you go, "What's that?" You know, and that's what, you know, you know, something in there kind of attracts you, and that's what you go for. And she's got exactly what I have. She knows exactly what she likes and what she doesn't like, and that's what's driven me all through the years, and still is. I still music drives me still, but I know if I don't like it straight away, you know. It needs to have a certain ingredient in it, and I think I passed that gift to my daughter, you know. So she's beginning to get into that whole rock and roll kind of thing, and but I'm warning her, you know. It's, you know, you know, I showed the Quadrophenia the other day, and she's like, "Why did the mods hate the rockers? You know, didn't everything come from the same place?" She can't understand it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. The rock and roll is like that. It's, you know, you're young and you're rebellious, and you hate the rockers because they do this and do that, and the rockers hate the mods because of whatever, you know. It's just part of teenagers, you know what I mean? Kids, you know, making decisions and making serious decisions sometimes. So I am very uh, aware of the risks of you know, what music can bring, or not just music. It's so to do, because now music is not like it used to be in me. It's like every day is like that, because you can be an executive and you can have that rock and rollness and you can fuck you up, you know. Or you can be, maybe before it used to be just a musician, but now you can be a ballet dancer, and you can be a, you know, a heroin addict or a dick, or you know, a troublesome work of art.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're a good guide for her, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're very close, and I'm just very lucky, you know. Like I said, you know, that's you know, all I want really. I know, you know, I don't know what the next part is, because she'll obviously leave, you know, have her own life and meet someone and stuff like that. But you know, I think I can tap myself on the, me and my wife can tap ourselves on the back and say, you know, that we, you know, part one's great, you know.
Exactly. I can tell how happy it makes you too.
All right, thank you.
All right. So, tell me about the Dogs to More a little bit. Like, do you think that there will ever be kind of a reunion of the kind of the lineup that we remember with you and Tyla and Steve and Bam?
Well, right now I don't think so. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we tried it before when our friend passed away. We did you know, we did the cyber recordings, and it was great, and we thought he was going to go somewhere, but he didn't. You know, because you know, it gets personal. I'm kind of in the, you know, I've been in the middle when we did these formations, and kind of it was a difficult position to be in the middle of the band and kind of try and get everybody to just um yeah, just do the gig, for God's sake, you know, and just do it, you know, and enjoy it. But you know, it's another thing doing it, you know. But I'm more, I've always been very kind of middle guy, you know. But I love all these guys, you know. I mean, Bam and Steve are still my closest friends. I don't talk to Tyler um because, you know, he knows if he talks to me, he just, you know, brings back the whole thing. So, you know, a very important part of my life, and they still, you know, Bam and Steve, I talk to them on a weekly basis. You know, it's just my big part of my life. You know, like they're like family to me. They'll always be like family. They changed my approach to life, and you know, there's certain parts in life where things influence you, and that's a big, strong point that shaped my life. You know, just how you use it.
Well, whether you do or not, you had a wonderful run with them.
Yes, absolutely. You know, there's no regrets, and you know, pureness of the music. I think that was there, and you know, trends come, trends go. But in terms of the spontaneity and everything, which is rock and roll, uh, uh, I'm glad that it got recorded.
Alrighty, so to this album, like you, now that you've released Everybody Rains on My Parade with Paul Mars Black, are you happy with how the record turned out?
Yeah, I mean, this record was been a long working process, you know, because we've had a lot of songs for a long time, and we try to redo some with different people and stuff like that. But we find that sometimes the first take's the best one, you know. So we went back, and so we changed a few things around, and we tried to find a purpose for an album. We never thought about it when we were doing the albums, you know, before with the dogs and stuff like that, you know, like a perfect album, the order of the album and everything. But this came all into focus about how do I want this album to stand out, and I had to find a purpose for it. And we had, you know, and I think what me and Paul do really easily is write songs. So it's just finding, so that's easy to do, but the tough thing to do is to make it all sound like it's part of a book, you know, like a chapter, you know, like it's a story. Basically an album is a story of that time zone, you know. So we wanted to try and capture the influences that we've had since our friendship. So we try to put stuff in there from blues to jazz to everything else that's come in. And so that was a big point of trying to make this album kind of work. You know, we had to take songs out, even though I liked them. There was a great instrumental that I got, you know, and I got Jimmy Ashurst played great bass on it, but it just didn't work on the album. You know, oh God, that's got to come out. But it just didn't work on the album. You know, I had a fight with the producer about it, but he was right. It didn't work, you know. So sacrifices that I had to make and everybody else had to make. It's never happened to, you know, those decisions were never there for me before. So it's the first album that I've done that's been like really well thought and planned out and put into perspective, you know. And yeah, I hope. I think we made a great job. I'm pretty happy with it anyway. And the reviews have been really awesome. I wouldn't have dreamt of getting there. The dogs never got good reviews, you know. We got terrible reviews. I don't think any famous people like the dogs, you know. They never say that, you know. But I got better reviews from that album, from this album that me and Paul did, than anything else I've done in terms of reviews anyway.
Yeah, they were very
Nobody buys it or anything, but you know, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, do you have any standout tracks on the album that you're really, really proud of?
Yeah. I've got the album over here.
Yes, there it is.
I have to look at the bloody songs, don't I? I've got the album, right?
Yeah, there it is, everybody. Please go out and buy it. Yep. And I'll include a link below so that people can order it as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, well, you know, I like Sugar Mama a lot. Sugar Mama is kind of like a blues tinged, heavy kind of bluesy song, the way I look at it. And The High Price to Lead a Low Life as well. It's one of those songs because sometimes me and Paul, it's so easy to write, and I thought this is too easy. I have to kind of, you know, let's so I started dismantling songs and try and do, why is it so bloody easy? And you know, and I tried dismantling, and that song kind of came from that. But most actually, when I tried to dismantle, most of the time is I just made it worse, because and then I thought, wow, this is a gift that me and Paul have. But in a song like High Price, I think it worked because we had to kind of, it was verse, chorus, and it was an order to it, and then we just put a solo where we didn't expect it. So it was like, wow, that really worked. So that chaos kind of, that's why I like that song. I think it broke away from normal in the way it starts and the way it ends. It's like it could be 3 or 4 songs, in within a song. So I like that. I like that one a lot. It's not the catchiest one, but I just like the way what we did to it.
Nice.
Also, Everybody Rains on My Parade, I think it's probably one of the best songs me and Paul ever wrote. I think that's got a great, it reminds me of the Kinks, that swing to it, and the way we made the guitars and the solo kind of, the New Orleans type of thing in it. It just loose and great. I'm very proud of this album. It's got some amazing stuff. I'm just glad that I got, to work with Muddy as well. Was a big part of it. Muddy Stardust, who was in Broken Tree. He's a big character in this album too. So he kind of helped us steer in the right direction, and great people involved.
Nice. Yeah, probably my favorite song on there is Regards from Hell.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I love that song. It reminds me, every time we do that, it reminds me of a David Bowie song.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, what plans, dreams, and hopes do you have for the future? I mean, do you think that you'll do some more shows with Paul for the album?
I hope to do some shows. I don't think it'll be anything too big, I'd like to go to England, because England, I think, and Europe have got more of the fan base that we, not the fan base, but it's got I know that it'd be welcomed over there. Here you have to just do there's no scene here, so over there you can ride it, and you can get a house full of people that love the same kind of genre. Here have to play the whiskey, get your to be all your friends really, and but over there it's kind of like there's a lot more togetherness in rock and roll, compared to here. You have to be kind of play stadiums here to keep it alive. But I'd love to do something like that. But the important thing for me is just to get this out, and we brought it out, and find out if there's interest in it. If there is some kind of interest, I would love to go there and tour.
Nice.
It's putting it out, the main thing right now, and then seeing the reaction, and then take it from there. Really, I mean, I'll always keep working with Paul. He's my partner in crime. It's a beautiful relationship, friendship that we've had. We've been started off, through divorces and kids and stuff like that, and we both embraced our fatherhood and friendship, and we don't have to be rebel rockers. We don't have to. We've done that. We kind of are who we are, accepting each other, and we don't have to play the rock and roll game. It's great.
Alrighty, so it looks like we're wrapping up. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I don't really do much interviews, and don't really like doing them, but this has been quite easy. Thank you for making it comfortable.
Oh, it's no problem. Thank you so much for sharing your life and your stories. I really appreciate it. And I think your fans will too. I mean, like you pointed out, there aren't many interviews with you out there. And I think that they're going to love hearing about your life and your career.
Thank you. Well, I'm probably the only Angolan guitar player that they know. Probably the best Angolan guitar player that they,
There you go. Yeah,
Angolan
definitely the best one that I know.
All right, darling. It's
And
great to meet you, and thank you so much. We'll be in
thank you.
touch.
Yes, sir. It was great to meet you too, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. All the best.
You too.